Hi, boys and girls. I miss reading to you. I decided I wanted to read you a non-fictional story, and this is a clue. This little stuffed animal, or whatever you want to call it, is a clue as to what my story is about. And I got this long, long ago at Lark Toys. Maybe some of you have been to Lark Toys by Kellogg. But this is the clue. So maybe you know. All right, let's read. Why frogs are wet? Did you guess that it's a little what? What is it? Can you tell me? Tadpole? Also called a pollywog. I'm reading you this story this week because our vocab words, one of them is wondered. Have you ever wondered more about frogs? Wondered. That's one of our vocab words. Another word is adventure. Here it looks like they're going on a safari, probably maybe in Africa, or no, more in the rainforest. I'm not sure. Adventure. We're going to take an adventure through our story today about frogs. And I hope you can get out this summer and do some exploring. And I bet you'll probably see a frog if you go to where it's wet. So the title of my story is, again, Why Frogs Are Wet. So my little pollywog or tadpole can sit right there. I'm going to try really hard not to get a glare. So it's from the Let's Read and Find Out science books. So they have one on mountains and volcanoes. This is a good series if you ever see one, like at a garage sale or something. Why frogs are wet? Frogs were here on Earth before people. They were here before monkeys or cats. Frogs were here before giraffes. Frogs have been here for millions of years. You can see that they're in a wet area. Long before there were frogs, there were fish. The fish breathed through their gills. After a long time, new kinds of fish appeared. These new fish had lungs for breathing. They could live out of water for a little while. When their ponds dried up, they were able to flop about on land. They had to flop because they had no legs. Later, some kinds of fish appeared that had legs in place of fins. Now they could move on land or in the water. These were forefathers of our frogs. Those are the creatures that came before what we know of today as frogs. A frog can live in the water or on land. It is called an amphibian. Amphibian is from a Greek phrase that means having a double life. And I love the color of that pond or shallow water. Kind of reminds me of some of the water I used to fish in. I like the illustrations. The frog has wet skin. The wet skin holds the secret of its double life. The frog breathes through its skin. It also breathes through its lungs. And that's the green frog. Underwater, a frog breathes through its skin. It gets air out of the water. On land, a frog breathes through its skin only when the skin is wet. It cannot get enough air through its lungs alone. If the skin dries out, or the frogs can't breathe. the frog dies. A frog's skin is always fresh. It sheds its skin often. New, wet skin has already grown under the old, and the frog eats the old skin. And it does that because, boys and girls, it has nutrients, doesn't it? This is the European common frog. In the fall and winter, frogs dig into the mud under streams and ponds. They stay there for months and months. They hardly breathe and their hearts slow down. They hibernate. As soon as the frog comes out into the spring from their hibernation, they hunt for mates. So that's really what they do. They're hunkered down under. Some kinds of frogs live all their lives in water. Others live in damp woods or marshland. But all frogs return to lakes, ponds, or puddles to mate and lay their eggs. The female frog lays their eggs in the water. Then the male frogs fertilize the eggs. A clump of eggs looks like a large helping of tapioca pudding. The eggs hatch in 4 to 21 days. Frog babies just hatched are called tadpoles or pollywogs. They look and swim like fish. They breathe through gills like fish. The gills look like fingers on either side of the tadpole's, the gills look like fingers on either side of the tadpole's head. After a few days, the gills are covered over with skin. Then you can see hind legs growing. Next, the front legs appear. The tail is slowly taken into the body. Lungs for breathing on land grow inside the frog. Now the little frog is an amphibian. It can live in the water or on land. There are more than 2,000 kinds of frogs. They are found all over the world. All of them have wet skin. Many frogs are green or brown, but there are frogs of almost every color. There are big frogs and little frogs. A giant frog lives in Africa. It is 12 inches long, not counting its legs. So boys and girls, here's 12 inches from one end of the ruler to the other, and that's the size of a giant frog that lives in Africa. So that's 12 inches. The largest frog in America is the bullfrog. Its body is 6 to 8 inches long. The smallest frog in America is a tree frog, and it's called a little little grass frog, and it's only half an inch long. So boys and girls, that's from the masking tape to my finger. Ooh, wouldn't that be fun to see? Maybe you have. I have not. Frogs were some of the first creatures on Earth to have voices. They use them when they hunt for mates in the spring. When a frog sings, its throat looks like a blown up balloon. The voices of bullfrogs are deep and low. They seem to say, "Wah, wah." The tree frogs have a high-pitched song. It rings like distant bells. Other frogs' calls are grunts squeaks, or squawks. Most female frogs don't sing, but they scream when they're frightened. Frogs are great jumpers. They can leap 10, 20, or 30 times their body length. They can jump very fast and in a zigzag pattern. The frog jumps to get away from its enemies. Sometimes it jumps to catch its food. When it looks for food, the frog does not jump about carelessly. It usually waits motionless for insects to fly within striking distance. It may sit on a branch, a lily pad, or a rock. Or it may float in the water. Its big, bulging eyes can see in all directions. Frogs stare without blinking. They can protect their eyes from drying by shutting them halfway. They can still see because they look right through their lower eyelids. And this again is that African bullfrog from Africa, of course. Frogs will eat anything that seems to be a living, moving insect. If the insect stops moving, the frog will pay no attention to it. Frogs will starve before they eat dead bugs. Let me read that one again. Frogs will starve before they eat dead bugs. When the frog's staring eyes spot a victim within striking distance, the frog's tongue makes the catch. It seldom misses. A frog's tongue is different from ours. It is attached to the front of its mouth. It folds back towards its throat. As a frog jumps for an insect, its tongue flips forward. The far end of the tongue has a sticky surface. The sticky end wraps around the insect. The insect sticks to the tongue, and the tongue swings back into the frog's mouth. The frog throws the insect down its throat. All this takes less than 1/10 of a second. So boys and girls, not even a second. Frogs catch insects that are in water or in the air or on land. They come out to find food at twilight or on rainy and cloudy days. During the heat of the day, they hide under damp leaves or under the water. They have to keep their skin wet because they are amphibians. Never forget the frogs are amphibians. They can live in the water or on land, but only as long as they keep their skin wet. The end. So boys and girls, I'm going to show you more about my little tadpole or pollywog. So like I said, I got this at Lark Toys, so I'm going to try to do this with one hand, but maybe you've seen these before, maybe you even have one, but I'm going to pull it closer. Sorry. Little malfunction there. I kind of need 2 hands. So just hang on, because this is mine transforming my tadpole into a frog. So look what I'm doing. I'm pulling it out. Yeah. It's good that this is not actually the way they are formed, isn't it? Because this is kind of goofy, but it's kind of fun. It just teaches kids, reminds all of us that tadpoles grow into frogs. And there he is. There's my frog. Isn't that cool? Yeah. There's my frog. And tucked inside is the tadpole. So, just something fun, something different. So, adios. Think spring, frogs, going on an adventure. Adventure. What are you going to wonder about next? What are you going to wonder about next? I've always wondered how birds know where the bird feeders are. So that's what I've wondered. I wondered about birds and finding bird feeders. And I probably need to do some exploring. Maybe just observe the birds and coming to my bird feeders. That's all. Adios.